Welcome everyone. So today we are doing a developer deep dive, which is basically going to be, I don't know what camera, I'm looking at this camera. We're basically going to do a deep dive into the development of Ultra Pro Wrestling. This is actually not the format that it was supposed to be. The idea behind this video that we were going to make, where we'd go over the development and where we are now and everything that's happened, was actually supposed to be me sitting in front of a camera just talking. And I did that. And I'm not throwing you under the bus, Stephen, but just to provide the context of this setup, we filmed a 3-hour long sit down where I chatted to a camera for 3 hours. And then after it, we realised there was something wrong with the audio, so couldn't salvage it. We thought we had to do it again. And so I said, I'm not going to sit for another 3 hours basically saying the exact same stuff. It's going to be difficult. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to match the energy of the first one. So that's when I gave Gimbals, Paul Watson, a phone call and said, a call, very specific on the type of call it was. It was a FaceTime, it wasn't even a phone call. I'm getting lost in the weeds here. I said, what if you come into the office and we just chat through, because we talk about this stuff all the time anyway. Yeah. So why don't we just actually sit down, chat through it? We can actually go over some of the videos that I wanted to talk about, which are part of the development of all this, and that'll probably be a much more natural way of doing this. I'll probably end up rambling for quite a while, and you can just cut me off or whatever. And if you've got questions and stuff that I've not thought about, then obviously that's great as well. But I guess so. Just to kind of go over the kind of point of doing this is just to give people an update on where we are with everything, because we are very much aware that we've not put out a lot of updates, especially when it comes to gameplay. But there are reasons for this, and some reasons we can't talk about, other reasons we can talk about. And so part of the idea of doing this is to basically talk through the reasons as to why we've not been able to share as much as we'd like to. But in the process of doing that, if we're going to do that anyway, and we're going to go into everything that's kind of going on behind the scenes, then it seems like we could use this as an opportunity to kind of go back through the history, because we're going to talk about so much of that anyway as part of the context, and we can actually do it in chronological order. I've got videos here that I'd like to show people, all that kind of stuff, and there is other stuff as well that I'd like to talk about. That this is where I kind of get stuck on whether or not we try and do everything in the context of this just now, and just try and cover everything, or if we break it up into parts. We've got a lot of stuff that we could talk about with the animations, and that should definitely, if we're going to break up into parts, that should definitely be part one, is a heavy focus on the animations, because it's part of the reason why we've not been able to show stuff. But we also want to talk about gameplay, but there's so much with the gameplay that feels like might be better doing that as another episode. And then we could do a third episode on, I was thinking the character models, although I've got stuff here that I kind of want to show off as well, so maybe we'll show a little bit and we can circle back. The other idea, which is, of course, let's do away with the game and let's just become a podcast. I guarantee you we'll get comments like that. These guys, they gave up on the game. They've decided podcasting is where they're true.
Sponsorships with Blue True. No.
NordVPN is why we're eating that. But anyway, as I said as well, with this whole thing, we're going to be able to edit this. This isn't going to be like a podcast that you would usually see where it's just unedited. We are going to edit things out. We're actually going to talk about things that we're not sure at this point if we're going to leave in, because it might be better to circle back and do it a different way. But yeah, we can just shoot the shit, talk about whatever. It's going to be probably a couple hours that we're going to be in here talking and going over everything. So relax, is what I'm saying. Just trying to tell you, Gimbals, just fucking relax. But yeah.
I guess the part is like we go from the start on this. I mean, why are you making a wrestling game? And what was it that inspired you to start making a wrestling game?
So, I mean, obviously, I was a game developer, mostly working on 2D games, mostly that kind of stuff. You've just reminded me one of the 2D images I wanted to show with the ICW game. I actually don't have on the drive, but I'm sure I'll find it and I'll be able to put it in somewhere. So I was, you know, and I apologise as well if people have listened to interviews I've done and they feel like they kind of have heard all this stuff. I'm going to say right now that I have stuff that I want to show you that you have not seen before because I know nobody's seen it. So, you know, don't skip past this bit just yet. It will get interesting. Basically, long story short, I'm a game developer, making a bunch of games, nothing too, you know, lucrative or nothing too that's like hitting, but I was quite happy just, you know, making a living doing what I was doing, and that was that. At the same time, I'm a wrestling fan. I actually feel like I'm more than a wrestling fan. I'm not someone that like just got into like, you know, casually when like Rock and Austin became big, you know, like my big brother was into wrestling before I was. When I was 5, he needed someone to be into wrestling so that he could throw around the living room. So he forced me to be a wrestling fan. And yeah, I don't know. I became absolutely obsessed with it, and it became my life. Like I've told everyone since I was 5 years old that I'm going to be a wrestler. That I will be the biggest wrestler in the world. That there will be action figures of me and all this stuff. Like I was, you know, absolutely fucking delusional with with all that stuff. But you know what? To be a wrestler, you have to. So that was a good justification. Anyway, you know, went down that path of trying to become a wrestler. Did a few matches, did a bunch of training, met lots of people, and at some point, for whatever reason, I just kind of lost the motivation, fell out of love with it a little bit, and turned my attention to game development. So I basically had my feet in two worlds here, game development and wrestling. And so when I ended up circling back with a few of the people that I knew, and you know, people have heard me talk about how this game was initially developed for a prominent company in Scotland. A lot of times I don't actually mention the company. I purposely don't drop their name. But I'm going to drop their name today. It was ICW. So this was supposed to be an ICW video game. You know, it basically came about that the full story behind it is that I actually had a wrestling ring because I went through a phase of I'm going to open up a school or start my own promotion. I'll hire a bunch of the guys that I know, and you know, I'll become a booker, and I'll become, you know, booker slash trainer, all that kind of stuff. So I bought this wrestling ring, and me being ambitious, most wrestling rings in Scotland, in the UK, are smaller than 18 foot. Most of them are, you know, 16 foot or 14 foot. But I went for the 18 foot one because I wanted to be the best. And so I got the biggest ring, and it turns out it was the biggest wrestling ring in the UK. And it turned out that was incredibly difficult to transport. So I ended up not really doing much with it because I couldn't take it anywhere. The type of you know, truck lorry that you needed was just, it made it not really feasible to start out with an 18-foot ring. This is why people start out with a small ring and then build up towards it. So anyway, I'm sitting with this ring and nothing to do with it, and I ended up messaging Mark Dallas and saying, I have this ring, you guys are getting pretty big, do you want it? You know,
what?
He actually didn't believe me at first. He was like, fuck off. If there's an 18-foot wrestling ring in this country, I would have known about it. And I was like, dude, come in my house. So he came in my house, and he's like, oh, you actually fucking do have an 18-foot how do you have this ring? So yeah, that's how that kind of all came about. And then I started going to ICW shows and hanging about with them, and I said, look, I'm a game developer. I have nothing on my plate just now. what if I do an ICW game? And he was like, fucking mate, that would be awesome. Like, cool, go do it. And I was like, right, okay. Went off, and I'd only really done 2D games. I hadn't really messed around with 3D at this point. And my background is primarily programmer. I've dabbled in all these other things. I've dabbled in animation, 3D modeling, just basically anything to do with game development I've dabbled in. But I started building this, I thought, well, let's look back at the 2D wrestling games. And me being such a fan of nostalgia, I was looking at the WrestleFest aesthetic, and I thought, oh, this would be simple enough to do, and this is something that we could kind of build on. And what if you took that WrestleFest idea and expanded on it, backstage, and my mind started going. I thought, this is a really cool idea. And I will flash the graphic if I've not done it already, but there's a graphic of that, where that got to in development. But along the way, at some point, it just kind of hit me. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm a wrestler, wrestling fan, game developer, and I'm also completely fucking obsessed with the AKI games. And I've got an opportunity here to make a wrestling game, and I'm doing some 2D throwback to WrestleFest, which I don't have anything against those games, but my heart's not really in it. I'm not massive, huge fan of those games. They're cool and everything, but I'm an AKI guy.
Yeah.
And so this felt like I was doing something that I was going to later regret, and then I was like, I need to rethink this. So yeah, took a step back and said nah, and I obviously discussed it with the people at ICW and everything, and I was like, I don't think this is the right idea. I don't think, we could do this as a side project, at some point. Because again, as well, this is, I don't have a company at this point. This is me and a couple of friends. And so, I thought we could circle back to this at some point in the future. But what I actually want to do is a 3D game. Never done a 3D game before, but, watching a bunch of tutorials and YouTube videos, I'm like, it's just programming. It doesn't seem too difficult. So anyway, cut to, it took us a couple of years to basically get to where we were with that game. There was a lot of, work involved, just even outside of the game development, because we'd have to go to shows and take pictures of all the gear from all the guys. Come back and model them and get a 3D character model ready for them. And this is before, not before, but this is outside of any actual gameplay mechanics or anything like that. And even early on, I was thinking, this has to have a creator wrestler, because the AKI games did, and it was great. And when it came to the creator wrestler, I was still thinking of it in terms of AKI, because I didn't really play the 2K games or whatever it was back then. Raw versus SmackDown, all that's I wasn't really big into those games. So my frame of reference for a creator wrestler is No Mercy. So I'm imagining, Grado or Joe Henry, and we've got their trunks, and just we can change the colour of them with, just a slider and all that stuff. Or we could take Grado's gear and put it on Drew McIntyre or something, that's where my mind was going with the creator wrestler. So we actually didn't get too much into the actual gameplay mechanics, because again, I'm just thinking, well, that's just a health bar, and you hit detection and then you take the health off. But what's going to be cool to see and what's going to be cool to show people is this creator wrestler. So I spent a lot of time building that out, which was much harder than I thought it was going to be. God, I actually remember getting really stuck with one part of it, part of the code, and I had to call on a fellow programmer to come in and look at it. And it took us all night to figure it out, but we figured it out, and we got this thing doing what we needed it to do. So yeah, there wasn't easy. There was lots of challenges, but by the end of it, I had the main part of that game was the creator wrestler suite that I'd set up. We actually had a bunch of cool models for some of the venues. We actually went to Mary Hill and some of the small buildings where they started out, because even back then I'm thinking there's going to be a story mode and everything. So yeah, we took pictures of like the buildings, the Barrowlands, and we modelled them out, and we had all these 3D models of these buildings. Modelled the ring, and I think we had fans at that point. The fans were very low poly. I ended up producing a sort of teaser trailer that ended up kind of not seeing the light of day, and I'm going to show that here, which is kind of cool, because I'm not sure if you've seen it. I might have shown you it before, I can't remember.
Not sure actually.
But the reason I want to show it is because there's context here, and this is the reason actually why I'm talking so much about ICW, and it's certainly not to name drop or anything like that. It's because there is a context here. So, and it has to do with one of the main focuses for this whole thing, and it's the animations. So of course I'm building out this AKI tribute in my mind, and so of course when it comes to, I say we're 3D modeling, we're programming out the creator wrestler system, we're going off and taking pictures of the guys' gears and all that stuff. But the animations is one thing. Like, I've got experience with animations, but mostly 2D. So I had to animate these characters that we'd made, and have them doing wrestling moves. Now, the easiest thing to do is to go on. There's plenty of sites where you can find assets, and there's you can look around even today. I think on Unity there's an asset packet which is just a whole bunch of wrestling animations. And I might show up some footage of that just now so that you can see that while technically these are wrestling animations, they're very different from what the AKI animations were. These animations are a little over the top and whatever.
I think that's what I was going to ask you about, is what is it about the AKI games, the animations, that make it so special that made you want to choose that over anything else? I
think it's because they're so universal. Obviously you do have some moves where it's like Kevin Nash's Powerbomb, where he pulls them in, and then he kind of hovers before he does it, and it's like that's the jackknife, that's Kevin Nash's move.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you do a suplex and it looks like anyone could do it. It looks like it's a very universal suplex. Like if you saw Stan Hansen doing this suplex, it wouldn't look wrong, it wouldn't look out of character. If you see Rey Mysterio doing the same suplex, it looks normal, it looks fine, because it's almost like there's a little bit of personality removed from the moves, which, and I guess nowadays you look at the WWE games and it's all motion capture, and when someone does a particular suplex they try and mimic the exact way that this guy who's going to be assigned that move does it, and so that's fine, but because the idea behind those AKI games is that, and of course we were building a creator wrestler, is that you can create your own character.
Yeah.
And one thing I hated is, and I hate this in all games, you create a character and it looks like it doesn't fit in the world.
Yeah.
It defeats the purpose of it, because it just sticks out like a sore thumb, and yeah, it sucks all the energy out of like the effort that you've spent making this guy. And then remember, like I think it was the Raw and SmackDown games where they'd have like the versus screen. So you'd have like The Rock looking all fucking, and then you'd have your created character where it just, I don't know, it just looked whitewashed, or there was something that just didn't look like how The Rock looked. And to me, it's like, I'm not going to spend a couple of hours or whatever creating RVD, making him perfect, and then have him show up on the versus screen next to The Rock looking like that. Especially like I think some of the games might have even used like real life images.
Yeah, renders and stuff. And then,
see, you know more about these games, the modern games, than I do. But yeah, so I don't. I just always kind of I'm not a fan of that. So, but the AKI games, like because you could edit the wrestlers in the same way that you could edit your created wrestlers, it was all universal. It was all like, if your created character looked good, well, or looked bad, well, you're only using all the parts that all the other characters are made from to make them look. So how can he really look bad? I mean, yeah, RVD is not going to look perfect in those games because he doesn't have the exact RVD outfit. but it's close enough.
Yeah.
And even if it's not close enough, he fits within the world.
Yeah.
But most creator wrestler characters don't. And so anyway, the moves we're talking about, suplexes and power bombs and stuff like that. I think it's like having a universal haircut. You know, you might if you get I'm trying to think of someone that's got a boring buzz cut haircut. You know,
John Cena.
Maybe, but like, I'm trying to think of like a cartoon, like a GI Joe type kind of just a character that's just, you know, an iconic character, but they've just got like an ordinary looking haircut. Yeah, I don't know, but I just think
that's a bit we pause and find out exactly one of those characters.
we'll flash some images up, but what I'm just basically trying to say that it's like, you know, you could apply a hairstyle to something, and if it's generic enough, it fits.
Yeah.
If it's too detailed and too specialised to that character, and then you put on someone else, you notice all those little details that make it go, it's not really that character because it's for that.
Yeah.
So there's something about that universality that works for like the whole game. Like, so same with the moves. If you can do like a suplex, it looks generic enough, which doesn't sound good on paper. You know, we're going to do a suplex and we're going to make it generic as fuck. Like, it doesn't sound good, but in the context of the whole system, that is actually what you want. Because then when you're playing the game and you're creating characters, the experience of it, nothing gets taken away from it by going, okay, I'm doing that, I'm doing the rock bottom, and it's very clearly the rock bottom. It's not just that move. It's very clearly the Rock's way of doing that move, and it just kind of sucks you out of it a little bit. But with the AKI games, I think nailed it with the animations. But yeah, the other thing as well is like there's a sort of realness to them and obviously when AKI were making those moves, they were looking at video footage and you know, slowing it down and going frame by frame, and I think there's actually people that have found the actual footage.
Yeah. And there's also hand-drawn animations that have came out from Destiny. You know, the way that the approach to putting moves together is very different from just the straight motion capture that you see in a lot of moves nowadays that lose a lot of the fun and the detail and the exaggeration that makes wrestling exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you can make a powerbomb look devastating, and in a way that you maybe can't with motion capture unless like you're just trying to kill the guy that's. But yeah, but then it's sort of trying to find this balance as well, because you can add in a little more oomph to make the moves look really devastating. But then at what point do you get into the territory of like WWE All-Stars, where like, you know, there's a spectrum. There's motion capture on one side, there's WWE All-Stars on the other. And I know people like those games. I'm not a fan of the jumping up in the air and slamming them down. Funnily enough, I love the aesthetic. The maybe All-Stars is a bit too over proportioned, but like the idea of that Fortnite stylized look that we've obviously went for, I love that. And I think usually when games companies and developers see that style, their mind goes towards, okay, cartoony, so it's going to be this, and it's going to be like flames coming out their hands and fucking all this stuff. And I don't know, I just think, you know, if you can get that aesthetic but keep everything else kind of realistic, there's something there where it's just, it works. Yeah. Because I mean, the realism is, I would say, more important than the stylized aesthetic. But the stylized aesthetic really works well with the concept of the creator wrestler. The other thing is, obviously, we're fucking low budget as fuck. Despite what one person on Twitter thought, which we'll maybe go into later. But yeah, no, we are very, very low budget. Even with the Kickstarter money, we are very low budget.
I was going to ask, where is your butler?
Oh, he's just turned the camera on and is, you know, getting me another drink. Actually, Stephen, who's here with us and helped set all this up, he was one of the guys that was with me back in the day with ICW, taking pictures and all that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, just thought to throw that in. But yeah, the what was I going to say? The the aesthetic that we went for just works so well with the creator wrestler. That's what I was saying. Yeah, we're low budget, so like the idea of realism. Actually, funnily enough, with the ICW game, that kind of hadn't occurred to me how difficult that would be. And I'm sure when I show you guys the stuff from ICW that no one's seen, you'll see what I mean. Where like we didn't not that we really went for realism. I guess we were trying to go in that direction, but it was difficult getting the lighting and everything right. I mean, you'll see. It's not a walk in the park trying to get stuff looking real. And so hats off to any game developers that are doing that, because it's a challenge. But more importantly, like, whilst we of course didn't have the budget for realism or motion capture, the creator wrestler is such a big part, and not just the creator wrestler system, but just the idea of making the game, whatever this game is, make it your own, is such a big part of what I loved about those AKI games, because I was a big ECW fan. So like the idea that you could go into that game and just create a whole roster of ECW guys. It helped that you had like Taz and the Dudleys, and you had a few other people, but like, you know, you could use the Dudleys attire to make Spike.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously there was some Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 assets I think carried over, so I can't remember if you had to actually unlock them or if you just got them as part of the base game, but you had the Sabu pants, because obviously they were used for the, you know, Hayabusa type character in VPW. So I actually get confused with Virtual Pro Wrestling with what licensed ones they had and which ones like they didn't, and all that stuff. But
I think they got confused as well.
But anyway, you had those pants, so you could make Sabu, and there was a scar and everything. Like, so it was great, you know. And again, it was like everyone that you made, it felt like it fit into the game. So that's an important point that we made. So that the aesthetic that we went for, I think, completely caters to that. But anyway, yeah. So we're kind of almost getting off track because we're talking about the aesthetic of the characters and stuff like that. And that is something that I think we'll try and go into on another episode.
Well, you were talking about like the moves when you were ICW and you're going to try and put together how the characters were moving around. How did you approach that initially?
Yes. So again, like I first of all started trying to create my own moves.
Right.
And
that seems very difficult.
Yeah, the timing of it, yeah, it was difficult, and I quickly kind of thought, this is not easy. This is like something that I'm probably gonna have to, because I mean, I can make a power bomb, I can you know, animate someone doing a power bomb, but it doesn't look good. And then of course we're doing this whole game in the vein of AKI, and so I thought, right, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm going to have to try and match the animations that were in the AKI games. Now, a very easy way of doing this would have been to rip the animations. And of course, people look at our animations in UPW and say, oh, cool, you guys somehow ripped them. So let's just be clear. There is no way to rip the animations from the AKI games. It's not possible.
No.
You can rip animations, I think, from GameCube games. And later, I think GameCube was what you were able to do it, but certainly after that, like later, like the way that you could get characters from games, they have a rig set up, and you use that rig to basically transfer an animation from one character to another, and you could preserve the animation. The AKI animations are dead in terms of like being able to salvage what all they like. You can't rip them, you can't do anything with them, all you can do is observe them. But me being obsessed with the AKI games, and the idea for this game being, and we're talking now about this ICW game, the idea for the gameplay was to mimic the AKI engine, which again, even back then, this was like something that obviously fans were wanting. Anyway, the process of this was initially first just observing the way the animations look and trying to recreate them without any guide or anything like that, just trying to do the suplex or the powerbomb or whatever. And again, the results were terrible. Just looked bad. Just, you know, the elbows and the knees and everything. I could get the timing right, but the placement of where his hand was and all that stuff, it just looked really like you didn't care. Like you're giving someone a powerbomb and you're just like, there, done the powerbomb. Like it just looked shit.
How long could you spend at that point trying to get that to work?
Not sure actually, because like well, in terms of the actual timeline of things, I have no memory of when I started working on the Creator Wrestler, when we started building. I mean, I knew we built the models before I think I started working on animations. I think as soon as we had a couple of models, that's when I was like, oh, I want to see Grado doing a powerbomb. I want to see Jack Jester doing whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we had a few models before I then started. We're already knee deep in this game, and we're like, I think I should now start trying to do the animations. I think just because of the experience I had with animations, I didn't think it was going to be too difficult. But then actually trying to do it, and again, you could say, it wasn't too difficult to do a powerbomb. It just looked shit. Like the difficult bit is to get it to look good. Yeah. So again, I could have probably reached out to an animator and said, hey, do you want to come on board with this? I need a powerbomb. I need whatever.
Just to be clear as well, at this point when ICW had asked you to make the game, what did they give you in terms of a budget to do this?
Absolutely fuck all. No, but I didn't ask for anything either. Like, this was... that makes it sound like they were, stingy or whatever.
No, it's just
like no. There wasn't a budget, and it was basically me just doing what I could. But that's fine. Like the way that I always saw it is like I'll get the game done and then I'll present it to them and then I'll say, right, how do we want to do this? What kind of split? I mean, a brand license I think is usually about between 12 and 15%. So that would have been probably the way it would have worked out. So I was happy not getting paid week to week, because in my head I was thinking, well, once this is done, I'm sure like ICW was on the rise. I'm sure a lot of people will buy this. I'll present them with, their split would be 12 to 15%, and if they want to come back at me, like we can have that conversation. But I'm sure this game will make money, so I'm sure it'll be worth all the time and effort. So it wasn't really a concern. It was nothing. It was fine. So, but yeah, obviously, I was doing everything off of my own back and everything. So it was a risk, and it was whatever, But so creating the animations, and as I say, like I would have been happy to bring someone on board who could do the animations, and I probably would have suggested to them, well, I'll give you a split of the revenue if you're willing to do these animations for nothing. Or the other idea as well is, like as I said, you could probably find some assets online where you've got guys doing basic wrestling moves, and then you could maybe use them as a guide to create the ones that you don't have and all that. So I wasn't completely sure of the best approach, but to be honest, I don't want other animations. If you're going to the effort of, and every fucking wrestling game comes out and says we're going to be just like AKI, we're going to be the spiritual successor. I don't want to be like AKI. I want to fucking be AKI. I want it to be like people see this and go, oh shit, AKI is making another game. So it's like, to me, it was really important to get the animations as perfectly recreated as possible. So I came up with an idea, and this will lead into the video, and then I'll go back and say that thing I was going to say. But the idea was, I'm going to screen record the animation. So let's say it's a suplex. I'll just go into the game engine, or the emulator, sorry, and I'll load up from the Creator Wrestler in No Mercy the guy doing the suplex, and I'll screen record it. And once I've got it screen recorded, it's then a video that I can then keyframe through it. I can know exactly how many frames there are in the animation. Like not just, I think that's roughly about 45 frames, I get out my little stopwatch, and I would actually know the actual frame count if I was to do it this way. And then I thought, if I record it front on and then I record it side on, I can take a screenshot of like the first frame of animation, maybe then like 10 frames later take another screenshot, then 10 frames later take another screenshot, and then what I can do is I can bring them into the 3D modeling program, and I can basically just try and line it up. I'll have a canvas on the back and a canvas to the side, where I can put these screenshots on, and I can literally just move the guy's hand into position, and that will get the placement of his elbows and his knees and everything like that. So that's what I did, and this is where I should probably now show the thing that no one's seen before, which was the ICW teaser trailer. Okay. So yeah, I'll bring this up just now, because this teaser trailer, yeah, and obviously don't worry, we're going to overlay this so we can just watch this bit. Yeah, so this teaser trailer has animations in it, and these animations are the result of that process that I was just talking about, where literally going through screenshots and lining up the hand placements, feet placements, everything.
It's your cell.
And you can see here, I mean, I'm looking at this, and yeah, the lighting isn't great. I'm not going to criticise it too much, but
it's just interesting to see the garage and to see. I mean, I think you can tell the basics of what you were trying to achieve are there with that. Right? You can see it, but hits your shelves mid 2017.
I'm sorry, but hits your shelves. I came up with that. I'm a fucking genius. But no, I'll go scrub through this a little bit, because there's one bit in particular. You know, like here's not great. This one with Jack Jester doing the leg up there, that's not great. But this one here, with Lionheart. Yeah. I just want to show that a couple of times, because I want everyone to see how janky this is. I think it's not too bad. Like if you're watching through it for the first time and you're kind of more like, oh, there's Drew, there's Grado, there's this. You maybe don't really pay attention to the bad lighting and everything else. But to me, I watch that and I hate it, because it's so janky and it's just not really. It's not a perfect recreation of those animations by any means.
Did you feel happy at the time when you'd put it out? Like, did you feel
no? But and I have to be careful, because I do not want to sound like I'm throwing any shade at anyone. But there was, even though there was no contract, even though there was no money or anything like that, I was doing this in my spare time. ICW had obviously announced that a game has been worked on, right. So they were probably feeling pressure from their fans, but I ended up getting a little bit of pressure from ICW, who obviously they don't know everything that goes into this. I remember actually when we first spoke about a game being made, it must have been in like January or February or something like that. So this was before any work had been done, you know.
So 2016, 2017?
I'm going to get lost on the fucking years. I'd say before that, but because this is now going back to even the 2D version.
Right. Yeah.
I think if my memory's serving me. So anyway, it was around January, February, and I remember someone at ICW saying to me, "So do you think it will be out by like November?" And I remember thinking, of this year, like, you know, like no, I mean, we're talking about like building a whole fucking video game here, like, you know. But so I think there was an expectation that it wasn't going to take too long, and that it could be like that it could hit your shelves by a certain point. So anyway, so I kind of started feeling a bit of that pressure, and I wanted to deliver something and show them something. Funnily enough, it's kind of like what we're like now, where it's like I'm feeling the pressure for like showing something, and so I'm going to end up putting out something that's not ready yet, that I'm not completely comfortable with. But and obviously that ended up not going out to the public, which, you know, I don't think that's because of like how it looked or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that was like, you know, just there was other reasons. So, but yeah, so it wasn't something I was like over the moon with, especially like, I mean, even at the time, I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm seeing how janky the movements are, and the thing is, I know that I can improve them. I don't quite know how yet, but I know that can be smoothed out. They can be worked on, but at least as a concept of like, you know, here's what it's going to look like. I don't think it was too bad, but I'm very critical watching it now and seeing the jankiness of those animations. You can actually see there. I don't know if you noticed that when the camera turns from Grado to Jack Jester, you can actually see him in his T-pose.
Yes, I think they're coming up.
But yeah, I mean, I was kind of just, you know, yeah, I was doing what I could and piecing that together. It was pieced together very quickly.
With the t-shirts on and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of detail already in that, you know, and
the vent, even though the lighting's wrong, it's not like I don't think I baked any lighting, which was a mistake, because it would look fucking so much nicer if I'd baked the lighting. But yeah, even there you can see like the level of detail and the effort that I went to, and obviously Stephen, who's with us as well, he was part of that, like literally going to these venues and taking a measuring tape, getting the balcony and the garage, like measuring from the floor to the bit, getting everything exactly right. Like we didn't just want to do like, oh yeah, the garage has a balcony, so we'll stick a balcony in. Like we were fucking meticulous with how we were, you know, going about everything.
And well, another aspect to that is like the garage is like a Glasgow institution that has never been in a video game, has never been modelled before by anyone for any reason whatsoever. So it's not like you could have went online like the animations and just pulled that. You had to go and make this from scratch.
Oh yeah.
That was another massive undertaking.
Yeah, and you know, took a while, but we eventually got there. I was very happy with how the venue looked. Obviously, lighting aside, but yeah, the work that we'd done on that, I was quite happy with. So yeah, we got to this point where we'd done these animations, and then we showed off this teaser to ICW. We actually only showed it off to like a handful of people, so it's funny. Like I don't think that any of the wrestlers that are in this video were ever made aware that this exists. So this very possibly could be the first time that they'd ever seen this. And who knows? Maybe I'll get a message from someone at ICW saying, "No, the reason that we didn't show it was because of, you know, who knows." But no, I mean, I've you know, no hard feelings and all that is what it is. But of course, the reason that I'm showing this is the context of the animations here. When you see that jankiness, this is to try and as well show people, look, for anyone out there that is convinced that we've somehow managed to rip the animations. And again, I'll say it's not possible. And if it was possible, I don't think I'd have any fucking shame in doing it. Just to get that out there as well, because, you know, ripping content from games is not something I'm in favour of. When it's a game that's fucking 25 years old and there is no way of a sequel, it's not going to happen. I don't give a fuck. Like I would rip them if I could, but I can't.
Part of it's preservation as well.
Yeah,
that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, those games, and look, it's not to say that they're not being preserved, because they are. The modern community is preserving them.
Yeah.
The modern community is going in and reskinning them and actually doing stuff that blows my mind. Where they're like, they're using, although you can't rip the animations, you can go in and you can identify the hex code that's used to construct the animation within the game, and they've figured out a way to take snippets of that code and stitch it onto another bit of code. So within the game, they can actually create new animations. I've spoken about this before, and it still blows my mind that they can do that. I was going to say something else that I think that they might have stumbled onto, not to do with the animations, but I probably shouldn't mention anything just in case, because I don't know what's public information and what's not with the modders. But anyway, yeah, so they're doing cool stuff, they're preserving it, they're updating it, they're making those games worth going back to and playing again. with all the stuff that they can do with the mods. But for me, as exciting as that is and as cool as that is, and you know, like fuck, I downloaded like the WCW Feel the Bang mod and the ECW mod, and so although I wasn't really a modder, I think I fucked around with some text. I made Captain America one time by retexturing, but I was not like big into the modern scene. But I did download the mods and I thought they were cool. I loved them, but the limitation is that you're never going to get more than 4 characters on screen. I don't think. Prove me wrong. The modders, they'll probably fucking figure out a way to do it. But I just came at it from like you're not going to be able to extend the amount of characters on screen.
Play online is another one.
You're not going to be able to play online. Although I think someone pointed out, I might be wrong about that. I think there might have been something where someone made it that possible. Incredible. So I could be wrong about that. But in order to do that, in order to upgrade the game, you still you're not going to really appeal to the masses with it because it's so much effort to find the right plugin and you know all that kind of stuff. There's so many barriers, and so again, my thinking was initially my thinking was like, you know, we're making an ICW game, so I'll base this off of the AKI engine. But later on, after the stuff ended and I came back to working on the game, this is when I more started thinking about the AKI engine and the limitations and all that kind of stuff. So actually, we could probably just move on to that. So like the ICW stuff kind of came to an end. Just trying to think if there was anything else to kind of tie that up.
I guess when after you showed that off, what was that between then and the whole deal with ICW sort of collapsing? Like, what was it that?
I see. To be honest, I'd probably rather not get into it because.
It's enough to say that it collapsed and then you decided to stay.
Yeah, the reason I don't want to get into it is because like there's going to be blame assigned somewhere. Aye. And that, you know,
it's just not.
I'm not going to take blame, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to take blame.
Yeah.
So talking about that is only going to lead to you know, conflict and all that stuff. And of course, the whole point of this whole segment that we've been going into is not to say, hey, look, I made an ICW game at one point, like, and we were going to, like, it's not that. The whole point of that is really, I want to talk about the animations and the process and how difficult it was, and being able to show that trailer and show how janky they are. I think one speaks to what I'm saying about how difficult it was to get them right, but also hopefully shuts up anyone that thinks that, you know, we've just went in and grabbed them somehow. Because again, it's not possible. Creating these animations is very difficult.
So when ICW, the thing finished, you moved on. At that point, did you think, I still want to make a wrestling game, or did you you just put it away?
Yeah, no, I was like, okay, well, that was that.
Yeah.
I held on to the code and everything. I probably actually did say to myself, it's cool. I'll somehow in the future come back to it, and whatever way, shape or form, I'll come back to it. It won't be wasted. I'll make sure that it's not wasted. But my energy and my attitude towards it and everything was like, okay, I need to fucking. I spent so long on it as well. Like, I need to do something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was shelved. Just think of that, fucking extra shelves.
You did a couple other projects in between that gave you a lot of experience and working on different types of games.
Yeah.
At what point after that did you decide, wait a minute, I really do want to make that wrestling game, I want to go back to it?
So one thing I've said in interviews is like, and it's true, I eventually realised that it didn't have to be a licensed game. It didn't have to have characters. The game engine was the thing that was important. But actually, there was a little step in between that. Before I got to that point where I was like, I could release this just with fictional characters and it's the game engine that's important.
Yeah.
Before I got to that point, I actually started thinking, I don't care if this gets released. I don't care if this, like, you know, if I can't make any money off of this, I'm going to do this for me. And therefore, if I'm doing it for me, and I'm not doing it, you know, to make a product that I can sell, then I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want. And so I just had this idea. I actually still vividly remember lying in bed, because I think this is probably from memory. I think this is the way that it happened. I went to bed. I got this idea in my head of, oh, I've got this like game engine for a rest game that I've been working on based on AKI. I'm still obsessed with AKI and everything. And I just had that thought of like, I could basically recreate one of the AKI games. I could basically take like Revenge and just actually recreate it and see how far I get. And that'll be fun. And I ended up not going to sleep that night. I ended up getting up out of bed, went over to my computer, and I started building the menu system for like actually the Revenge menu system. I went and found like that the menu has the flame. In fact, hold on, I've got it here. I can bring this up. Yeah, this one here. This is sadly the only footage that I have from this, and it's not great. It comes up there, but anyway. So you can see actually the menu system. So these aren't the graphics from Revenge, although they look exactly like them. This was like recreated. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage, but I actually got the animation frame for frame perfect for like hovering over the menu.
Seeing something like it all collapses down in the way that it does.
If you've seen it, then I must have footage of it somewhere. So I'll try and dig that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't find it when I was looking through some stuff here.
But it's spot on essentially. Like,
I mean, again, I was doing basically in the same way, like, you know, reproducing the AKI animations where I'd put the guy's hand in the right place, or even like when we were measuring the garage. I've just always been very meticulous. It has to be like pixel perfect, like, you know. So that menu is, I think, at that stage, possibly, you know, someone will correct me because they'll might go in and compare and be like, oh, that's not, you know, it should be up a bit or something like that. But no, my goal was to basically get it like a remaster of Revenge. And again, I'm not going to be able to sell that. You know, I might be able to put out videos on it. Actually, if I'd known what you can do now with YouTube, where like you've seen the guy that makes the Simpsons Hit and Run. Yeah. So if
Yubbs, I think his name is.
Or if I'd have known that you could like monetize that content, just the whole process of remaking a game, back then I'd have been doing that, and I would have been meticulously remaking Revenge with upscale graphics and all that. But of course, I didn't know that was a thing that you could do. So I was just making this purely for me. Didn't really expect anyone to ever see it at any point. But so one of the reasons I'm bringing this up just now as well is because I was showing this to Stephen earlier on, and I actually said to him, you can see the models I've created there, and I was going through like, I'm like, this is cool because what you can see is the commentary booth off to the side. So what I did there with the commentary booth is I actually just took like some of the stuff from like the textures and everything from the entranceway and used those parts to create. So this is basically, if AKI had done the commentary booth, that's what it would look like. And that's just cool to me. I'm just geeking out over it, like oh, that looks so cool. But yeah, you can see the banner, right? As far as I remember, that banner actually changed. I actually edited that. I went into Photoshop, cleaned it up, made it up like. In fact, I don't think I was going to say I think I must have upscaled it, but I don't think I think back then I purposely wasn't like, you know, upscaling anything, because I wanted it to be like, if AKI had made it, what would it look like? So yeah, actually in the video that I've got here, you see the little nitro, yeah.
Stuff like that,
So that was something else again, where it's like, I'm kind of saying, well, if AKI was to make it, but at the same time, what if they weren't limited by anything? You know, so you could have the actual WCW Tron there playing the graphic, and I went back and looked at old footage of WCW and was like, oh, that's the graphic that they would play. So yeah, again, I was just doing this purely for myself, just to enjoy the process of creating an upscaled, remastered version of in this case Revenge. I've got some more footage here of where that eventually kind of took me. So yeah, I had a couple of models here. I don't know where the fuck, like, you know, the state of these models and the shaders and everything.
It's like Gilbert versus Glenn Gilberti, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're not looking great, but you can see the animations there, like, they're just, you know, sliding about all over the place. But I like this footage because you can actually see much more of, well, you see the entranceway, you see I've put it off to the side, because that's like, you know, a lot of times you'd have that in WCW, and the idea of having like an AKI game with the entrance off to the side, again, it's just, I just wanted to see it, wanted to see what it looked like. And with the entrance being off to the side, there's room for the commentary booth over there. So yeah, this was again, just, I'm not thinking I'm going to release this anywhere. This is just purely for me, to get fun out of the process of doing it. Yeah, actually you can see in this one that the ropes are kind of working how they should, but you can see that the ropes aren't affected on all four sides. They're only affected on the side that it's on. I've got some footage of the development of the ropes and the physics with the ropes. Is it this one? Yeah, so check this one out. So that was me trying to get the ropes to respond and it not working. And then this one here I think is just kind of more of the same.
So you were doing this for yourself. You've been at it for a wee while since the ICW finished. Now you've decided that you're going to create this recreation of, let's say, Revenge and the old AKI games. How long are you at that before the notion hits you that this actually might be your next project that you want to put out?
Again, like I'm actually so fuzzy on the timeline of everything, because I think I started doing that with the Revenge stuff, and then because it was just a personal project, I wasn't doing it for anything. I think I took a break from that, and then I started developing the Andrew Yang game, and then I think it was after the Andrew Yang game, I'm trying to remember now. I remember putting out a post. There was a post that I put out after the Andrew Yang game that then I said, I'm thinking about returning to wrestling, and so that was like a public. That was almost like me saying to myself, okay, if you're going to put something out there publicly, I'm holding my own feet to the fire. So if that's the reason that I did that, which I think it is, then that would have been the time when I sort of decided I'm going to try and get back into the idea of a wrestling game. So probably then was when I kind of thought, you know, I could spend a lot of time developing a remastered version of Revenge, but realistically it's a lot of time, and at the end of the day, if you spend so much time, like we're talking years developing something, you kind of want to be able to see something at the end of it, and so yeah, I'm really fuzzy on the timeline of everything, but there was something else that happened and I can't quite remember the order, but it might have been when I was doing the Revenge stuff, and when you see the little clip there of Skinny Austin and Skinny Rock running around, the running animation is a lot better. So I think it could have been around that time. I'm not sure, but there was a point where I kind of rethought this whole thing with, you know, lining everything up and trying to get the hands in the right place and it coming out janky. I thought of a way to remove the jankiness and make them smoother. And so when he's running there, I think that's probably the result of the development of that process. So yeah, I'm trying to think now because there's something else that happened, and again, I can't remember where this fits in the timeline. But me and Stephen and Frank, I got to the point where I realised that I could basically recreate the animations without them being janky. Very time consuming, took like, you know, a lot of work. It wasn't really something that You know, I say it wasn't something like, you know, that anyone could do, but actually Frank was very, very good at being able to do it and knowing what to look for when doing it. But the point I'm trying to stress is it was difficult. It was a hard process. But I managed to do enough of them. I remember actually the first one that I did was the rocker dropper, or the Faymaster. And it was the first one that I did that was smooth. It was like a new process I had, and it came out smooth. And I looked at it and I went, oh my fucking God, I've got a system here now. I've got something in place where I can do it. So me and Frank and Stephen actually sat down and recorded footage of every single move in the Creator Wrestler, front and on the side. I've got them on a hard drive somewhere. If I find it, I'll throw up a screenshot of that, because you have no idea how much fucking work that took. Like it's so, it's not that it's really like a lot of work in terms of like the time it takes to do it, but it's so monotonous. It's because it's like it's not just like recording them and then splicing them. It's labeling them, making sure that they're all in the right folders. You need a folder for every, you know, whatever. So yeah, took a long time, but the reason we did that is because I got to a point where I was confident I could do it. I was confident I could take the animations and reproduce them and have them be smooth and have them basically be like, well, basically be what you saw then in the eventual Kickstarter trailer. All those animations were the result of this new process.
So when we go to the Kickstarter trailer, well, at that point, right, how many animations have you got done, and how long has it taken you to do those animations?
Oh fuck, I have no idea. A lot. I got through a lot, but well, a lot in terms of what though? A lot in terms of the full scale of the animations that are in those games. Fuck no. Probably barely, like, you know, no, barely scraping the surface when you think about the number of animations that are in those games. But that's actually the reason why the Kickstarter came about as an idea, because I'd worked out that there was like 1,400 moves around that. There was something like 1,400 moves in the game, and it was basically taken around a day or two to do each move. And if a move's a you know, a sweet chin music, you know, it's just one guy doing a kick. If the move is suplex, there's two characters that need to be animated there. And you don't think about it when you say like there's 1,400 moves, but like fucking how many of those moves involve two people? So it's like double the work. And so I said, well, if this is going to average out about 2 days per move, you know, I don't know if you've got a calculator on you, but I mean, what's that, like 1,400 times to 2,800 days. Convert that to years. I think at one point I worked out it was I think it was 7 years, and so that's 7 years if you are doing nothing but animations.
Aye, and the key part that you're going to come on to speaking about soon, that people hopefully now understand, is yes, that's 7 years or whatever to do the moves, but it's all connective tissue in between it, all the other animations that would need to be captured and would need to be put into the game. Yeah,
and I hadn't sat down and worked out how many of those, we call them like the universal animations.
Yeah.
Hadn't sat down and worked out how many of those there were. So, but when you think about it, you're thinking, okay, well, how many can there be? There's like, what's a universal animation? It's like lying down, looking up. Lying down, looking down. You know, you're in that crouch position. You're in the turnbuckle, like, you know, selling. You're standing on the apron. And then of course there's all the taunts as well. Like there's apron taunts. But actually, I was thinking, oh fuck, you know, forget the taunts. Like that. They're not really needed to build out, like, you know, all the game and everything. So yeah, when I realised like how long it was going to take, the sheer number of animations, and looking at how long it was going to take to do each animation, And again, like although I enlisted the help of some friends to help me do some of the monotonous work, like recording all the front and side on, actual doing like going through, moving hands and getting them all in place, that was like all me. I'm sitting there doing that myself, and just coming to this realization that this isn't going to work. I'm just not going to be able to. I mean, fucking 7 years if it's just me. So then I started thinking, well, if I put together a fundraiser and I can get some money, I can use that money to hire a bunch of people. And at this stage, I'm not thinking about hiring a programmer. I'm not thinking about hiring a 3D animator, modeler. All I'm thinking about is the animations.
Yeah.
All I'm thinking about is I can hire people, because the other thing as well is like, because of this system that I've created to reproduce them, I don't need someone that's necessarily like an experienced animator. I just need someone that knows how to use a computer, and they can sit down and they can look through and they can go, all right, okay, so you want me to click this button and then move that, and all right, okay, yeah, I can do that. As long as they know how to use a computer, like I could hire like fucking 10 people, and that would just cut down on all the time that it takes to reproduce these things. And again, not thinking about the sheer number of universal animations, which later I would realise was way fucking more than what I had thought. But yeah, so anyway, I put together the animations that I had, the characters that I'd developed. In fact, just to show you how close I actually got with the animations. So I'll try and do a side by side. So we only see one. But here's like the Falcon Arrow. Okay, so we're actually only viewing this as one at a time, but when we put this together in the video, we'll do a side by side. I think it's this one here, yeah. So you can see how closely I got.
Yeah.
Especially like if you compare it again to the jankiness of
the
ICW one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was able to get very fucking. Everyone will look at them and go, oh, they look like they were stolen. They look like they were ripped from the game because they're so close. I can see the little differences. But if that's what you think, if you think that we've gotten so close that we must have stolen them, ripped them somehow, that's a fucking win for me, because for years I didn't think this was possible, and I thought the closest that we're going to get is a janky fucking mess. So anyway, I'm happy with how they look, and for anyone who thinks that they are one-to-one, I'm glad you think so. So yeah, anyway, we get to the end of Kickstarter. I've realised it's going to take so much time. If we raise money, I'll take care of all the gameplay, the programming, all that side to it. The character models, I wasn't too really worried about. I mean, the ones that you see in the Kickstarter, they're kind of like the ones that I just shown there. Where like I sort of had a system, again, working with the creator wrestler, of how I could switch out parts and how I could make them look passable. They're not good, they're not looking great, but they're passable. And as long as you've got a creator wrestler system and you can switch out the shorts with the whatever, and change the colours and stuff, then that's fine. People will accept that, I'm sure. That'll be fine. So I keep fucking itching my nose. I'm going to get so many comments saying, is Sam on cocaine or something, because he keeps touching his
So the money's went, folks.
There will be people that believe that. So.
Well, just before you got to the Kickstarter, that's kind of where I got involved with the project, because I had seen you go on different YouTube channels and speak to different people, explaining and showing off some very, very early footage of the game. But what struck me most about all of it was that your idea for what wrestling would be, how you would present it, was different from anybody else out there. It had a grand vision for it. And I distinctly remember it was like RVD versus Taz, your version.
Oh, yeah.
But it was going up to stuff and changing the date. and you saying, oh, like, I want to go back to this specific date and this venue. It was the sort of game that when I was like 8 years old, I dreamed of making, you know, like in your head, and you add every fantastical element without any consideration for, can you program that, can you run that, can you do anything? But what you had laid out was that exciting vision that anyone that was a kid and loved wrestling, that's the sort of game that they would want to play.
Yeah, this is why you're here, because you're reminding me of stuff that I'd want to say that, like, you know, that I'd forget. The reason that was part of my thought process is, again, going back to the mods for the AKI mods. I really like those mods, and I thought, you know, you've got the ECW mod and you've got the WCW mod, and then you've got the old school classic WWF mod.
Yeah.
But it's such a shame that you can't bring these things together. But I mean, me just recreating Revenge, oh fuck, I can, you know, I could put, you know, DDP and Raven in there, but I could also just grab Austin and Hogan and stuff like that. Now, you can obviously make a mod where you've got, here's the WCW guys, here's the... But I'm greedy. I wanted fucking everybody. I wanted every ECW guy. I wanted the whole universe that just was the actual real life wrestling universe. All the Japanese guys. Imagine just... And then you start thinking, oh, well, imagine I'm Raven and I'm playing as Raven and I'm in ECW. But I can just think, fuck it, I'm bored of ECW. I want to see what happens if Raven then goes off to Japan at that time. So that's where I started thinking about, oh, this has to be like this world map thing with all these different promotions, and you can jump between them. And then you're like, oh well, the time, everything changes over time. So then I'm like, well, just in the way that you can select a different costume, you know, you can select a different arena. Like, you know, you've got the arena, the, you know, whatever it is, Fall Brawl from 90, whatever, you know. So yeah, that just kind of got in my head of like, I want a bunch of different promotions and I want time to be an element as well. And then when I did that, I'm sure I'll find the footage for that somewhere as well, the RVD Taz thing. I actually only quickly stuck together the Taz character, just so that it would kind of piece together the ECW feel. Because the real reason I did that was I wanted to see the ramp and the entrance, the stage, that brick stage. In fact, I'm trying to, again, the timeline's lost on me, but I remember taking textures from backstage in No Mercy, because I wanted to preserve the pixelated, you know, aesthetic too as well at one point. So this is probably not that ECW thing, but I remember finding textures backstage and thinking, oh, I could use that. Oh, you know what it was? This is what I did. The Royal Rumble in No Mercy had the taxi cab.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
But at the sides, it had the brickwork.
Oh aye.
So I got the textures for the brickwork, and I just photoshopped them so that they were exactly how they were, but now I could use them and rotate them and piece bits together, and that's how I made the first the first time I made the ECW brick. So that when you see that brick, it's not just Sam's went into Photoshop and made some brick. That is actually how the AKI developers made brick. And so that's how fucking obsessed I am with this shit. So anyway, the footage with RVD and Taz, that entranceway, I don't know if that's that original one that I made from the brick. It might be. I'd need to go back and look at it. In fact, something tells me it is. And even actually so you've got the brickwork of the entranceway, but then you've got the side bits that come out, and they're all that chicken wire mesh. So of course we've got chicken wire mesh backstage, and with the cage as well, and actually used the chicken wire mesh that was backstage. You had the boiler room, and so there was a door, and that door I thought we can use that for the cage and for the Hell in a Cell. So I made it like a Hell in a Cell, again using the same graphics from the same textures from No Mercy, so that I'm literally seeing what it would have looked like if the AKI developers had made that Hell in a Cell. So I was always doing stuff like that. It just that, you know, fascinates me.
I think all of that came through when you were doing these interviews with people like this passion about wanting to create something not just as a close to AKI or this, but literally spot on version of it, but with all the other features, all the extra love, all the attention to detail, but with a plan to actually put it in motion and do it. A lot of people have said, I want to make a wrestling game, and then they fall short on step 2 or 3.
That sort of speaks to my personality, I think,
Yeah.
and the fact that I spent so many years wanting to be a wrestler. Like, how many people when they were kids said, I'm going to be a wrestler?
Yeah.
I can't say I fully followed it through, because I did end up not becoming a wrestler, and I stopped when I was like in my 20s. But I think most kids would have stopped saying that when they were like 8, you know.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Yeah.
I was like, no, if I'm going to do something, I'm seeing it through to the end. I don't care. Like, fuck everything else. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it.
Would you say you were hyper focused on it?
I was high, yeah. Well, it's funny, like, because it's a pun, but it's true. Like, that is where hyper focus games comes from. It's a ADHD term, and I've got ADHD, and this explains so much of my personality. And when I become hyper focused on one thing, everything else around me just evaporates, and I can barely even have a conversation with someone about anything unless it's that thing. So yeah, I'm hyper focused on this game, and it's not ever wavered. You know, I think with if it was the ICW game, where it's because it's the ICW branding and everything, it kind of feels like, although I'm doing all the work for this game, it kind of feels like it's someone else's project a little bit. But you know, Ultra Pro Wrestling, it's my baby, it's my thing. So there's no demotivation. Like, it's just, you know, full on with it. But anyway, so we eventually, so where we at? We launched the Kickstarter. That did fucking really well. And it's funny, like, in my head, like, I think the first tier of the Kickstarter was something like 15,000. And I remember thinking, like, if I reach the 15,000, that's you know, we'd obviously like more. The more the better. The more money that we have, the more additional people I can hire. But 15,000 lets me hire at least one person to sit and go through this process, recreating the animations. And again, either I could do the animations as well, and then we get through a whole ton of them, or I can have this person doing the animations, and I can focus on gameplay and everything else. Because that's the other thing as well. Like, you can't start building out the gameplay without the animations. Like, it's technically possible to have like a placeholder animation of, you know, this is what he would be like if he was in the turnbuckle, and you just have an animation of someone standing there. But it's just work that you're going to have to go back and redo, because, you know, you don't know if the rotation's right, you don't know if the positioning's right. Like, so it's just work that you have to double back on yourself eventually. So yeah, my thinking was, we'll come back to gameplay, and because I'd done the Andrew Yang game, I actually had a pretty decent fighting system in place for like health management, hit detection, all that kind of stuff. So I was fully confident on the gameplay not being too much of an issue. Had I known Melon Bread and all the modders before this, I might have realised the full scope of the gameplay, and just how much goes into, like, just all the various mechanics to get the balance of the game right. That was something I completely underestimated, how in depth that was, which now, thanks to Melon Bread, I'm now a lot more clued up about. But
were you surprised about like how well the Kickstarter did? Because you were saying the first tier was 15 and like...
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I'd actually like unintentionally... well, there was a slight bit of intention, but this had sort of culminated in a holiday that me and my family had booked to go to New Zealand, because my wife's brother was getting married. And then I think because it sort of culminated, possibly that was the reason I decided. I can't actually remember if it was a conscious decision or not, but either way, the Kickstarter launched on the day that we were leaving. So we were literally going to the airport on the day that the Kickstarter launched. So I can't actually remember if I intentionally said it on that day, which I might have done, so that I could launch it, and I wouldn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I could just launch it, and then I'd be like, right, now I can, because again, it's the whole fucking hyper focus thing. I cannot switch off. I cannot take my mind off of something. So by launching it on that day, I'm then forced to. I'm forced to pull myself away from it. So we got on the plane. Whatever it is, 18 hours. Flight, flying to Dubai, then to New Zealand, and I couldn't sleep on the plane. So like I was completely fucking sleep deprived. And then as soon as I woke up, it felt like it was like 3 days since the Kickstarter had launched. And Hazel, my partner, was saying like, do you want to check on it? And I was so nervous. I went, no, because I'm just expecting like all that's going to happen is I'm going to look at it. It'll be like a few bucks here from close friends. And then I'll have to go, okay, let me try and not think about it now, and let me try and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And so I purposely didn't look at it, which like kind of led to us becoming quite good friends. So I'll explain all that. But yeah, so didn't look at it, and then again trying to think of the order of things. But eventually, I got a message from my mum, who had been, that's my mom for all the Americans, who had been keeping an eye on it. And she was instructed not to tell me, where it was at, or like don't tell me anything about it. And she says, she messaged saying, you might have to look at it because you're getting comments from people saying that don't give them money because we've asked questions and they're not responding to us. And I was like, oh fuck! I never even thought of that. Like I never thought we launch a Kickstarter and then people are going to be like, hey, is your plan to do this or and like if I'm just fucking ignoring them, then they're going to be like, oh well, that's not a good sign. And just like, well, if they ignore me, I'm ignoring them. Fuck them. Like I just didn't even consider that at all. So then it was like, all right, okay, we'll look at it. We'll look at it. And again, I'm thinking like, oh man, I hope we've raised like fucking a grand. If we've got a grand, then like in the first few days, that's like such a good sign. And yeah, I remember Hazel kind of standing there with the phone telling me like where it's at, and she's like, oh my god. And I was like, what, good or bad? And she's like, it's good. I'm like, oh no, like tell me, just tell me. And she's like, it's at like 15 grand. And I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Like just wow. Like, even fucking now I'm getting emotional just thinking about that moment of like, that blew my mind. Like, it's been a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no fucking way. Like, there's, because again, like, I'm only frame of reference for people potentially wanting a game in this, the AKI. Obviously people say like, oh, we want it to be like AKI. You Google what's the best wrestling game ever. A lot of websites, the first result is No Mercy or Virtual Pro Wrestling or whatever. So like I do know that there is an audience out there for it, but whether or not that audience is willing to invest in a small company and all that stuff, and especially with Pro Wrestling X having people have invested in them before. In fact, we've even had comments from people who have said, I've invested in not just Pro Wrestling X, but I've invested in Kickstarter projects before. I want you guys to do well, but I can't give you any money. I've been burned too many times.
I invested in Pro Wrestling X.
Oh, fucking, well, there you go.
And realising at the time all the errors that they had made up, I think everybody uses them as a warning sign now. And it's not to bash the people involved. I think they went down a path first, and a lot of people learn from that. But it's very difficult, and so your expectations going in there, and we had spoken before the Kickstarter, so I had also gone in with fingers crossed, being like, I hope this is enough, and Sam comes out and we get a decent amount, but then seeing the numbers just creep up, and then after the 15 grand, it just kept going.
Yeah, and before you even get to that, just to circle back to this is where I was going to say where we ended up becoming friends. Well, obviously we'd spoken before that, but I realised then when I went on and seen all the questions that people were asking and people were like abandoning me, there was one person, and it was you, was replying to every fucking comment. I can't even remember if we had a Discord at this point or whatever, but I'd obviously said somewhere that I was like away to New Zealand. You were replying to every single person, telling them don't lose faith, don't worry about it. If he's not replying, he's in New Zealand, he's probably in the plane, he's probably like doing this, he's probably like you were just providing cover for everyone that would potentially say, fuck this, he's not responding to me, and go away. And so I'm like, who the fuck is this Gimbals guy? Like he's just like, wow, that's amazing. Like you've saved my reputation, and I didn't even know that any of this shit was going on. So yeah, obviously felt fucking tremendous gratitude to you. So there you go.
It was seeing a project and all your ideas and everything, and this, because we'd spoken and knowing you just a wee tiny bit, how real you were about all this, and how honest, and how much belief you had in
and no one will believe any of this, because we happen to fucking live we happen to live like an hour, less than an hour,
away from each other. I mean, we didn't know that when we first started speaking either.
Yeah.
I like
same with Melon Bread as well. Melon Bread is Scottish and lives like an hour away.
And then after that,
I've never met him yet, but we will, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. No, we definitely need to meet Melon Bread. And the fact is, like, that's when it started to feel like, there's a lot of wee things that are just connecting perfectly with this, that are starting to fall in line, that would have been, everything Melon Bread's provided for this game has become essential, right? And without that, there's issues and things that are missing. That's why we're so confident right now in talking about this game being a proper AKI sequel, not just kind of like AKI.
Yeah.
Without that stuff, that doesn't become a reality. So that guy, he's done a tremendous favour to all wrestling fans.
But before I knew of Melon Bread and all the work that he'd done to go in to figure out just even things like each character starts with a health value of 255. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about like the conditions in which damage would affect. All tech damage. There's so many elements to this game that it would fucking blow your mind. I thought that when it comes to getting those values right, I'll just reverse engineer it. I'll play the game and I'll try and in the same way where I meticulously look at like the number of frames that are in an animation, I'll work out the values by reverse engineering, by playing the game, seeing how much the spirit, because the thing is, well, you don't even get to see the health, but you see the spirit meter, and maybe I can work out like maybe someone kicks out of a pin if they've still got a little bit of health. I was so fucking naive as to the possibility of being able to reverse engineer. I now think that would have been impossible.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stars aligned, and Melon Bread came out with all this stuff that he'd uncovered, and I'm just like, wow, we now have a basis. We've got the base for and this, I should maybe actually just address that as well. We're talking a lot about AKI, and I imagine there will be people that say, like, stop going on about AKI, like, this is Ultra Pro Wrestling should be your own game, it should be whatever. I'll say it will be. But as a base, the base level, we want it to be a pure recreation, a pure replication, because then you can expand on it. And when you take risks and expand in certain ways, if it begins to not feel like an AKI game, you'll know. And so you'll make decisions about being able to pull it back. And as long as you've got that base, I think we will be fine and we won't be able to go wrong. Most wrestling games that come out, like there was the TNA game, I remember all the talk of that being a spiritual successor. There was the AEW game, obviously.
The TNA game might have been good if they'd finished it, but it was sort of like 25% of a game that looked quite nice, Yeah. And the problem is, what you're talking about is there's a blueprint for how you make a successful wrestling game that feels right. And if you go in blind and then just try and work that out by yourself, you're going to fail. I
think it's about like the wrestling fans, I think, always speculate as to what went wrong with a video game, and your mind can't help but go towards probably the programmers are not wrestling fans. And they might be, but it's something that kind of sounds like it makes sense. Like when something just isn't right, you go, nah, these developers, even with Fight Forever, like we knew Kenny Omega was involved to a degree, and it's just easy to imagine a scenario where Kenny Omega's going into the office and telling the programmers this is what it should be like, and they're sort of going, yeah, but you don't understand, like, you're a wrestler, you understand wrestling, but no, the game mechanics side of things, you don't understand. It can't be like that because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And there's just all this miscommunication. There's also just, I think, that there's a bit of ego when it comes to like developing a game.
Yeah.
If I wanted to develop a game like Super Mario, well, obviously I'm not going to create it just like Super Mario because, well, then where's my imprint on this thing?
Sure.
And that's my ego to a degree. Obviously, fucking wouldn't. It's not going to sell very well when people can easily just buy Super Mario, so maybe that's a bad example. But if there was a game that no longer existed that people can't download on the Nintendo Switch shop or whatever, if I'm trying to recreate that experience, I don't want my ego to get in the way of it being a spiritual successor, of it being what it should be, just at the base level anyway. There's a few things. I actually spoke to someone today on the Discord about the camera mechanics. We've done something with the camera which is different. Actually, not just different from AKI, different from any other wrestling game.
Yeah.
But I strongly believe that it falls in line with the principles of AKI, and I think when people see it, they'll like it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If everyone hates it, I'll fucking I'll make it so that you can switch it off.
Yeah.
But I will take risks to a degree, and I will have my own spin on it.
Yeah.
But as a base level, it has to be a pure recreation of AKI that's then expanded upon, and I think that's how we then get it right.
Yeah.
Because if we go in saying, "Oh, we want to do it this way," as the base level, you'll never be able to pull it back and get it to where, because you won't even know if the base level is ever going to be right.
Yeah.
But whereas if you create it exactly like AKI and you play it and you test it and you have a bunch of matches and you're like, fuck yeah, this feels just like we're playing No Mercy or Virtual Pro Wrestling, then you've got something that you can work with.
And it's the same philosophy we'll go into making the speciality matches, be it cage matches or ladder matches or tag team matches, which is another thing that we've been speaking about. We don't want to just put things in as basic, we've added 4 characters and there you go, try and work it out. We want there to be a story of wrestling, a feeling of this game and the AKI logic behind it all, so that every time you pick a different type of match, it feels different, it feels like a new experience. There's a reason for choosing that.
Yeah, you don't want a tag team match just to be a one-on-one match with 4 players.
Yeah.
You want, but anyway, so I'm aware that we're obviously
running up time.
The thing is, this is supposed to be a long form thing, but I know I'm conscious of the fact that there's a bunch of stuff that we need to get to. So I guess we'll try and almost speed run this bit a little bit. So so we get the Kickstarter money.
Mm-hmm.
Over the moon celebration, everything like that. I can now do it. And actually, when we got to the end of it, the only thing that I was really thinking about was the animations.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest, just knowing how long it takes, and as I said, if it's going to take 7 years for one person, seeing that money and knowing that money's going into the account, all I can think about is the animations are done. The animations are fucking done, and there's nothing stopping. Because once the animations are done, there's nothing stopping especially now with the fucking melon bread stuff. There's nothing stopping this from being a perfect recreation. There's no barriers.
Just to step back a wee second, when your money came in and you saw that number, did you feel a lot of pressure from the community and yourself, like, oh, now I really have to deliver on this? Was it worse or better in a way?
To be honest, no. I didn't feel... I felt like because we don't put out the Kickstarter trailer, people can see what can be done.
Yeah.
And again, my mind's just focused on the animations. And I'm like, eventually we'll get to a point where I can say to everyone, look, that money translated into this. Here's all the fucking animations. And of course, in my mind at that time, it's going to be not just the animations, it's going to be gameplay and everything else. But we'll get to that. So no, oddly enough, everyone around me did. Lots of people in my family. My mum. Sorry if that's dicky. I'm not trying to be that. I'm just trying to be funny. But yeah, my mum was. She was very nervous. She was like, she was like, but like, I think just because she imagined if that was her and all the pressure and all the expectation.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. It's like, do you feel pressure? Like if someone asks you to do a backflip, right, and you can't do a backflip, then you're fucked. You're going to stand up there and be like, oh shit, what if this goes wrong?
Yeah.
But if you can do a backflip, like it's fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like you just, why would there be any pressure?
Sure.
And it's the same with this. Like, things take a long time, but there's nothing other than, I guess, when it came to the gameplay, reverse engineer, which I was naive about. But because I was naive about it, there wasn't a lack of confidence there. I was like, okay, it'll be tough, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure everything out. I'll work it out. I'll do it. And that's obviously made all the fucking easier now, thanks to Melon Bread. But there was nothing that was giving me any sort of lack of confidence. The biggest struggle to this game is time management and the sheer number of animations. And that and sorry to keep going on about it, but that is it. The animation process of recreating those things is so fucking difficult and takes so much time that this was basically going to become an abandoned project if the Kickstarter failed. I would not have had any. I mean, time is one thing, but like, you know, I 7 years. To just to, and that's not even including the universal animations. Which
I
now,
was going to say, in total, how many was that? Did we say?
So I don't think I've said actually yet how many animations, because that's what I was going to say. Is like, now I know that there's, am I right in saying this, more than double the number of moves?
Yeah, well,
I thought there'd be like 50, like, you know, universal animations. So the thing that, and we kind of worked this out recently, but so I should maybe come on to that in a little second.
Sure.
Because the other part of this process is we got the Kickstarter money. Frank became our lead animator, and basically Frank is a gem. Like Frank was able to produce the animations at the same rate as I was. But every other person that we hired, and there was quite a few, either couldn't do it. Some of them, I guess, maybe weren't wrestling fans. So like the motivation. I mean, honestly, like doing these animations, if you're a wrestling fan, you get that dopamine of like once you see that the Fameasser, you can sit back and go, oh, that looks gorgeous. Like, you know, you can be excited about it. You can be happy about it. If you're not a wrestling fan and you're just like, you know, you just have no motivation to fucking sit, because producing those animations is excruciating.
There was an animation that you and Frank had worked together on. I don't know if we can cut it in here if you're wanting to show it off. That the whole team was incredibly excited about when they saw that, because it was the first time a move, I'm not sure if it had been in the original, I don't think it was, and it felt like an AKI move done the AKI way, and it was like everybody's minds were blown at that point, like, oh, this isn't just what we've got, but we can keep. Is it
what one is it? Because there was a few, but
I was going to say the RVD doing the drop kick off the top rope.
Yeah. I mean, that was so again, like creating new moves is so much easier once the original moves have been recreated, because then you have a basis. When it comes to like the springboard up to the top rope, although it is different from there isn't really a springboard like that, but yeah, once you've got the base animations down, you can use them as the basis for new animations. So and because that's the other thing as well, is we don't want to just create the Van Daminator, the Van Terminator, all this stuff. And of course people will ask, like, why are you making RVD's moves, you know? Are they telling us that they've got no, we don't have RVD, unfortunately. He obviously, people know he's my favourite wrestler. He's the one that I want in the game the most. So anyway, I guess where we were was we at this stage we'd got the Kickstarter funding. We had Frank working nearly full time. Not initially, I think, because he still had another job at the time, so he wasn't on board full time right away. But eventually, he did come on, and during that time, we were basically trying to find other people to do that same job, but it was a little harder than what I initially thought it'd be. I actually have a friend who told me that hiring people is harder than programming. And he works for Rockstar, so he knows what he's talking about. That sounds like such a name drop. Like, I've got a friend that works for Rockstar. No, but that's what he said, and then I was like, I kind of was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, but actually having to do it, I was like, oh yeah, it is. It's fucking finding the right person for the job is. It's just, again, not easy. Like, I thought, if you've got the money, you can just hire people and it's fine. I kind of like overlooked just that whole process and how difficult it was. Because the thing is, we found people that could do it, but as I said, motivation was a factor, skill was a factor. I think whether or not you enjoyed wrestling and enjoyed seeing the moves was a factor. So basically, a lot of the people that we hired just weren't able to produce them in the same way that I could, or the same way that Frank could. And I also just assumed that everyone would be able to do it at that pace. Because some people were able to produce it in terms of the quality and get the animations looking right, but the speed. Which, in fact, we had one animator that took a submission hold which had a loop on it. It was like a Boston Crab or something, so it had this loop to the animation. And rather than just do the animation for the first stage of the loop, they did the animation like sculpted, put the positions in for every fucking stage of, rather than copying the bit that we've got, which is just exactly the same. So obviously that's just, and I'm not blaming them, like, you know, that's obviously my fault for not going through it thoroughly enough. But yeah, just you kind of need that intuitiveness to know that that's not how it should be done. Whereas like Frank would have that. Frank would understand that, you know, fundamentally how the animation process pipeline should all kind of come together and everything. So yeah, we were getting the animations done, but because hiring people was a bit of a challenge, and anytime we hired the wrong, because we've got the money now to hire a bunch of people, but anytime we hired the wrong person, where the money just was the work rate just wasn't matching up with Frank, it felt like we were burning money. It felt like we were wasting money. So I became quite hesitant to, you know, I definitely didn't want to squander this money. Like, this is such a gift and it has to be used right and everything. So, you know, I was very cautious and careful of how it was spent. But that kind of resulted in mostly just Frank being the main animator for a bulk of the time. And it started getting to the point where, because Frank's doing as much as he can, and I can't do animations non-stop, I need to work on gameplay, and not just gameplay, there's all these other systems like the create wrestler system, create an event system, just even the main menu system where like you need everything to flow together. You need to be able to go into the options menu and adjust the sound. If you want to do like the mapping of the controller, like these are all things that are outside of like core gameplay, but they're all things that need done. And then there's graphics, the actual menu graphics and all this stuff. And we've had a lot of help with graphics from other people at times. The main logo was actually done by a guy called Lance. So this wasn't done by me, this was done by him. He took my original version of it and made it this, and it's amazing. But a lot of the graphics, that would be me, like just having to sit and go through Photoshop and spend a lot of time, and again, more time I'm not spending on gameplay. So anyway, when it comes to the animations, we actually printed off this big chart of, we've got it on the wall here, and I'm sure Stephen will cut in some B-roll of this big chart. But this was every single move that was in No Mercy. If you go through the Creator Wrestler, these are all the moves, all listed out. We had marks for like certain stages of the development of the animation, and the goal was just to get through that list and do all the animations. At first, we didn't really have too much of a direction, and it was just like, you know, whatever animation you feel like doing, just do that. But then as time went on and we couldn't find the right people, or, you know, we could find people, but again, we didn't want to waste money. If we had more money, if we had double the budget, probably wouldn't have cared as much. But I felt it important to be really careful with how the money was being spent. So for a lot of time, it ended up just being Frank having to work on these animations. And I thought, we actually have to now pin this down to basically, if we take two characters that we think are going to be in a demo that we can present, Bill Dollar, Oliver Buckingham, if we basically just go through those moves, and we actually had Hal hand select all the moves that he thinks those guys should do. So we had the big list of, we've got the big list of moves, but now we had the list of all the Buckingham moves and all the Bill Dollar moves, and we thought, let's focus on that. And with that directed focus, that everything started getting a bit everything felt like it was way more on track, and I was still missing a few universal animations that would have helped to build out the gameplay, but I had enough universal animations that I felt like it was all going on the right course, and there wasn't any issues. And I think it was around that point we'd sort of laid everything out, and we thought, we actually have enough of a trajectory here to put a release date on a demo. And actually with the money kind of drying up in the way that it was going on and everything, we actually started thinking this was a really good idea if we do a demo, even if it is just two characters, because at least we'll have something that we can put out there. And the Kickstarter obviously did well, so if we put out this demo and we charge for it, we could get more money and then feel way more secure about hiring more people, because the issue wasn't really that we didn't have enough money to hire people. We did, but again, I didn't want to feel like I was burning money, but if we increased the budget and everything like that, I would have felt more comfortable. And then I thought this would be like a loop. So we put out the demo, we get some money in, we use that money to build out the animations, we update the demo, more people buy it, more money comes in, we build out more animations, and it would just sort of perpetuate like that. That was the game plan. And so this is where we started putting together the Riot demo trailer and all the stuff, and we're like, okay, by Q3 2024 we should definitely have all this wrapped up by then. Ended up not happening. Ended up the animations, it didn't really, the timeline, and I'm not putting all the blame on it wasn't just the animations, there was other things going on. Actually, one of the big things is that we'd set aside some money for the UI, because it was obviously, we want the whole menu and everything, we want it all to be presentable and look good. And so we had a company produce some graphics that we thought was awesome, that we really liked, and we thought, these graphics, this is what's needed for the menu system. Now I wonder if I should actually show what they presented us. I don't want to come across like I'm shitting on them, but I want people to see what I was kind of presented with, because we had these awesome graphics. I had a sort of placeholder, in my opinion, very poor graphics that I had done, that was, as I say, placeholder, this is what the menu will be. And my expectation was that they would understand what elements were required on each different page of the menu. They would take that information and they would come back with a menu that would be something like, a AAA game. Like, I guess, what games are some, like Fortnite, or like what's the Marvel one, Rivals? That's what I was expecting, which maybe that's unfair of me to expect that from small team and whatever, I guess, but that was because of the graphics that they'd produced before, that was what I was expecting. And instead we got, I'll probably end up showing it, but if I don't show it, I'll just explain it. It was basically, they'd taken the placeholder thing that I'd done and just kind of reskinned it, and then reskinned it in a way where it was just, it terrible.
Brother, what's that?
It was like cartoony. It looked like a children's TV show game, like the game version of a kids TV show or something, with all these cartoon and I know that the cartoon graphics and all that stuff, they were probably just placeholders, I guess, but this was devastating because we had set aside the time for the animation. And the money for not the animation, the UI, and the money for developing the UI, we put that all aside and put it into the hands of a third party that we were confident they were going to deliver. And then when they didn't, and it wasn't just a case of they didn't deliver, it was a case of a conversation is not going to fix this. This is now something that we need to step back and reevaluate, and we either need to find someone else, which is going to take time and putting more money in developing test screens and putting our trust in them when we could easily just be let down again, or we have to do it ourselves. And if we have to do it ourselves, that's fine. I didn't put a lot of effort into the placeholder graphics. If I was to put effort in and had the time, I'm convinced that I could make pretty fucking good graphics for the UI. I just don't have the time. So that's why we were putting money towards getting someone else to do it, especially people that we thought that's what they do, so it'd be a piece of cake for them. But knowing that now we're not going to be able to have the UI ready for a demo, and then you had the problem with the animations as well, where due to reasons I'm not going to get into here, like there was some delays, and it got to the point where I actually had to step away from gameplay in order to do some animation work, and I could see just the rate of the animations it just wasn't developing at the speed that I thought it was initially going to develop at, and again I'm having to take time away from the gameplay, which cuts into that. So just so many things were happening where it was just delay after delay, and so we ended up in a situation where the writing was on the wall that we are not going to be able to release a demo when we said that we would. So what do we do? And of course, I just said, well, fuck it. I have to be honest about it. I have to go out and tell everyone. So I made a video. Hopefully people saw that video. I know a lot of people didn't, because we still get questions about where's the demo? When's the demo coming out? Wasn't the demo supposed to be out? And that's obviously that's what happens when you put out one bit of information. And this actually goes to something that we'll discuss later, about just because you put something out, you can then do a correction or an upgrade. Doesn't mean those people are going to come back to acknowledge it. So I put out this kind of thing saying, sorry, not going to be able to deliver on this demo. The people that did see that video, if I was to watch it back now, I look fucking distraught in this video.
I was going to say, I know, speaking to you at the time though, how difficult a decision and video that was to make, to speak to people, because you felt very, very responsible for not meeting those targets.
Well, yeah.
But you'd set.
Look, I don't mind. I don't mind taking all the time in the world to make this game. I don't mind sitting down, doing the work, day after day. I'll do that. But telling people that I'm going to do something by a certain date and then not being able to deliver on it is fucking heartbreaking. Telling people, give me some money and I'll produce this game within a certain window, and then not being able to deliver on it is heartbreaking. So, I mean, the thing is, I can take comfort in the fact that anytime that there's been a problem, anytime there's been a delay, I've always just come out and said it and made. I haven't tried to pull the wool over anyone's eyes or even like make excuses or and if anything sounds like I'm making an excuse, I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to outline everything that happened in the way that it happened, as best as I can remember. So, but yeah, it's shit. It's like it's shit. Like I mean, no one wants this game out more than I do, and no one wants you guys to be able to play it more than I do. So yeah, my worst fear is like people are speculating that. There might be people that speculate like we just took money from the Kickstarter and fucked off, and that was it. Which that's just fucking ridiculous, because people can see that we're if you were to take the money from the Kickstarter and go away, why on earth why do I still have a Twitter account? Why would I not have deleted that account? Why would I not have tried to like wipe the internet of any reference to Ox Pro Wrestling, or do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't fucking make sense.
Why would you be making this video?
Yeah, but even you, who we weren't friends, we didn't know each other until this was a thing.
No.
Same with Hal, same with Lucha, same with every single person on the team, with the exception of Stephen and Frank. I didn't know until the Kickstarter had come in. Hal, I think I'd spoke to once or twice in the week before the Kickstarter was launched. Everyone else I met after the Kickstarter. And of course, like, everyone on the staff is like in the staff Discord, where we all talk to each other every day. We have a staff meeting once a week. None of you guys. I've used this argument before. I was talking to someone on Discord, but like, none of you guys have any allegiance to me. And it's not like we know Sam's been a bit shifty, and Sam took the money and he's not really doing any work, but it's Sam, he's our friend.
Yeah.
Like, no, the only reason that you're here is because you want. I've piqued your interest with this game, and you want to see it through and all that stuff. So, like, logically, for anyone to say that I've done any, or do you get comments saying like, and I know I shouldn't focus on this because it's like the amount of people that actually comment this type of negative stuff is extremely small. It's like less than 1% of the audience that we have, but it does get to me. Like, you read a comment saying, "Oh, this is a scam, this is whatever," and you're just like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like, the amount of time that I've spent working on this game, dedicating, that's time that I could have spent, like, doing stuff with my family, doing like whatever else. Instead, I'm spending my life doing this game, and to read someone saying like, if they've made up their mind that it's a scam, fine, whatever, fuck them. But when you get that feeling like they're trying to convince other people, it's annoying. It just grates on you. And I know we spoke about this before. Like, it's so dumb to focus on the negatives when there's so many positive comments. But I guess it's a human nature thing. You can't help it. You focus on the negatives.
Oh, I think it's important, like, to state as well that the inverse of that, all the feedback that you did get from the community when you put that video out was really, really heartwarming. Like, it really made a difference. Like, people's response to it, their understanding of the situation, how kind they were about everything, how supportive, the fact that they told you that this, take as long as you need. It was really, really reassuring, and I think that did help at the time. Like,
and any time you focus on the negative ones, you feel like you're dismissing all those positive ones, and so I definitely don't want to be doing that. I definitely appreciate all the positive comments, but I know, I mean, even just filming this, there will be people that post negative shit, and I know it's the internet, you can't fucking do anything about it. But as I say, the ones that are posting that stuff, I'm not interested in trying to convince them of how much work we've done and all the rest of it. It's the ones that might be kind of on the fence, thinking, oh well, it's been like nearly 2 years since the Kickstarter, and you've not posted any gameplay footage in a while. Like, so they're sort of starting to get in there, and then if they start reading comments like that, it's annoying. But yeah, obviously, there's reasons as to why we've not been able to post anything in a while, and hopefully we'll be able to explain that, throughout the course of this. And it really does. People wouldn't think it, but it really does come back to the animations and the issues, and this is why the focus of this video. If you've been watching this and you think we've said the word animation 100 times, it's because I'm trying to get you guys to understand that the animation side of this is the biggest hurdle to this game being developed. And it was one of, and probably the main reason as to why the demo had to get delayed. So, demo gets delayed, I put out a video. As I said, I can watch that now and go, oh shit, like I look distraught. I look like, I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have done like a second recording where it was a little bit more cheery. But yeah, as I said, I just trying to be open and honest and let you guys know where I am emotionally and everything. So put that video out. We delay the demo, and rather than just try and get back to animations, rather than try and focus on what I can do with the gameplay and the current state that it's in without having animations, I actually took nearly a week where I stepped back and I stepped away from developing the things that were being developed. And the reason I did that is because I thought this whole thing with the animations, where it's monotonous and it takes a long time, even though you could find people like Frank, and even though we might be able to get enough animations done to scrape together a 1v1 demo, the way that we've set everything up, there has to be a fucking better way of doing this.
Yeah.
So, took me a week, trial and error, trying ideas. Everything failed, and I felt like I was wasting so much time trying to figure out another way to do this.
Because bear in mind, this is something that a lot of people had been trying to work out in terms of getting moves from those games.
I don't actually know if for 20 years people were trying to do that or not. For all I know, because as I said, like, I was aware of mods, but I wasn't a modder. The only thing I ever did with mods was change some textures here and there.
Yeah.
And I definitely wasn't involved in the community, so I didn't know what they were trying and what they weren't trying. But what I do know is if it had been possible to rip those animations, it would have been done.
Yeah.
People would have done it.
Yeah.
Especially after 20 years. Like they would have figured out a way. Because as well, I'm not the only one that loves those animations.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I can't speak to whether or not there was a concerted effort to try and recreate these animations by anyone else. But I know that no one's ever, got to that point. And it's not like I got to that point either. Like, as I said, the way that the N64, I don't know if it's just the architecture of the N64, but it's just, to me, it wasn't possible. And to this day, I don't think it's possible. Someone might come along and prove me wrong. And if you do, please tell me. please. But anyway, I had a system in place, and it worked to the degree of we can recreate these animations. But the time it takes to do it is kind of like, all right, you can recreate them. So what? In fact, another thing that came about is Retro Randy, who is one of the big modders. I could be wrong, and so I'm sorry if I'm getting the order of events wrong here, or who's responsible for what, because there's a big team of people that are on the, and there's obviously Freeman, there's AKI Club. I feel like I want to list all the names just to give them all credit, but there's a big community of these guys, and they all play their part and everything. But I think it was Retro Randy that's developed this AKI tool. And so the AKI tool, so just to back up again, actually, when it comes to creating animations, because of the way it's done, I'm limited to what I can view within No Mercy based on what animations you see in the Creator Wrestler. So all the moves that you don't see in the Creator Wrestler, the referee moves, like, you actually have referee animations for, like, start the match, whether he kicked out of a pin, ring the bell if the match is over. There's all these animations that, again, we label them as universal animations. They are not visible within the Creator Wrestler. Climbing the cage, all that stuff. None of that's visible within the Creator Wrestler. But this thing that Retro Randy made, which, again, they've made it for the purposes of organising and going through all the moves and finding out what the ID is for each move, so that they can then use part of that move to splice together with another move to create a move within the games, or transfer a move from Virtual Pro Wrestling to No Mercy or to Revenge or whatever it is. So that's the purpose that they've created this tool. And I wasn't aware of it until quite into having, created all these reproduction animations, and then I find this tool and I'm like, oh wow, this is, you can view from the same perspective as the Create Wrestler, you can view every single animation, and it actually makes some of the animations that we'd already done, some of the grapple animations, some of them were quite difficult for us, because if you've only got a front on and a side on perspective, and there's two wrestlers, they're blocking each other out, so you don't really, there's bits that you don't see. You would end up needing a front on, a side on, another side on, and a back view as well. But this AKI animation tool let you view them all as individual animations. So if the guy's doing a suplex, you only see the wrestler that's doing the move, you don't see the wrestler that's taking the move. You'd have to go to the next animation to see the wrestler taking the move. So this, of course, all the referee animations, climbing the turnbuckle, the steel cage, the ladders, every single animation that you can think of, that's in No Mercy, is there and set up in a way where you can properly view it. Not only that, every single animation that's in Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 is in the code for No Mercy, so that's visible as well. So I know they created this for their modern thing, but this animation tool was like gold to me, because this is exactly what I would need, something like this, in order to view the referee, all the universal animations. Not only that, but they're all ID'd. They all have an ID next to them. The very first one, I think, is 2DD9, and the last one is 437 something. And so when you run that through a calculator and say how many, based on this hex value, how many individual animations are there? I mean, we've probably spoke about this, but the full total number of animations, the number I found out that excluded duplicates, because there's actually a few duplicates, or there's a few ones you selected that are empty. So removing the duplicates and removing the empty ones, there was 5,647.
Jesus, that's a lot.
It's, well, if you think about when we worked out there was 1,400 moves.
Yeah. And
I thought the universal animations, now I guess when I was working out the universal animations, I wasn't considering taunts. I said taunts as a whole other, bag of worms. We can put that to the side. And I'm just, if you think about a match, you think, it's mostly the strikes and the moves. And how many of these universal animations could there even be? And I had a conversation with Ubat on the Discord, and because he was saying surely you're done with all the universal animations. And this is when I was figuring it all out, and I said, well, how many do you think there are? And he's like, I don't know, 50. And I'm like, okay, I'll need to go double check, but pretty fucking sure there's more than 50.
Yeah.
And then I discovered this tool and work out that there's, including all the moves and all the strikes and everything, 5,000. So if you take off, just even say 2,000 separate animations that make up all the moves,
yeah,
there's still at least 3,000 more animations.
And how long did you initially, when you were kind of working it out in your head, did you say it would take to do the initial animations?
Well, we've thought about 7 years. If it was one person. If it was one person doing, it gets kind of funky because you say one person doing a move could be a super kick or it could be a suplex. So it's not an easy calculation to work out. But yeah, we kind of thought, okay, if it takes a couple of days to do a move and there's 1,400 moves, 2,800, and then you just think of that out over 7 years. So if 2,800 separate animations is 7 years,
yeah,
then 5,647
Someone do the maths.
You take your 33 and a 30.
Is that's like about double that. Yeah, 15.47 years. If it was one person doing it.
So 15 and a half years.
15 and a half years if it was one person doing it. Now, like you look at the AKI games, and obviously they didn't do all those moves for one game.
No.
They did a bunch of moves for Virtual Pro Wrestling and World Tour, and then when Revenge came, they had time to.
And they did
do
WrestleMania
that.
2000.
And then WrestleMania 2000, and then Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, No Mercy. So they had time to, even before actually all that, there was the PlayStation game, all the N64 games, something like, is there like 7 years from when they started making those games till No Mercy, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, and of course they don't have one person working on animation. They'll have, I don't even know, a team of people. Yeah. So yeah, when you're considering that I'm one guy, and I need to be doing gameplay and other stuff with the call system and all that, and then we've got Frank, and then we kind of don't really have anyone else, because anyone else that we got just wasn't able to work at the rate Frank was working at. So you put all this together, and the best hope that we have of this game delivering on everything that I initially thought that it could deliver on, it's either I rethink the pipeline for the animation,
yeah,
and I improve it, and I improve the basically just optimize it and get the time that it takes to put the hand in the right place, all that stuff. If I can get the time of that down, that's kind of our only option. The other option is, again, we release a demo that we then charge for, which I never felt comfortable about doing anyway, because it's like, how many people actually charge for a demo?
Yeah.
And then we found out as well, Steam actually has a thing where if the game's labelled as a demo, you're not allowed to charge for it. So then we started talking about like, oh well, what if we did a free demo with a 1v1,
yeah,
and we can give people access to the Creator Wrestler and other stuff that they can play around with, but at the same time we launch an early access that then you have to pay for, and the way we'll sort of incentivize people to help us out and pay for the early access is we'll give them all the stuff like the Creator Wrestler, but we'll put in a thing like you can fuck about with it, but you can't save anything. As soon as you try and save something in the Creator Wrestler, because that's kind of the only difference there would be between the early access and the demo, that we'd like to make the demo for free, because again that serves as an advert, and it will pull people towards the early access, hopefully. Then if you want to save it, it comes up with a little pop-up message. In order to save this, you must unlock the early access version, head on over here to whatever. So the demo could literally serve as an advert of such. So that was the plan. But then realising the full scope of these universal animations, and just everything sort of came together. And this is where I kind of thought, okay, we've got a few ideas on the table here. I think I might have a way of improving the efficiency of our animation pipeline. Wasn't sure, but I think it's possible. So it took time away. As I say, it took me literally. It just worked out. It was 1 week. It wasn't like I said to myself, I'm going to take a week. I don't know how long it would have taken, but it took a week. And by the end of the week, I fucking did it. I did something I'm not going to disclose, because this system that I've created, I think probably could be used for other things. So I don't want to go too much into it. But what I've been able to do with this system is change the game, basically.
So you were talking 15 and a half years potentially. How many moves again did we say? 5,000?
Well, not moves. Moves.
Sorry, animations. Sorry.
Yeah. So animations, 5,647.
And 15 years it would take.
Yeah,
So,
if it was one person doing it.
So you got this process to work.
Yeah, I basically managed. It's the same process, but now it's much faster. Like much faster.
How much faster are we talking?
So would it took 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
4 months ago, I started implementing this new system.
Yeah.
And started producing the animations based on this new system.
Mm-hmm.
As of I'm trying to think now, 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
We now have all of them. We now have all of them done.
That's incredible. Like, that's mind-blowing.
So as I say, for 4 months I've been working on this, producing the animations. This is why we've not been able to post any video footage, any gameplay, any stuff, because everything else is kind of taking a break while I focused on getting the animations done. And I want to pause because I do think there will be people that say, oh, you shouldn't have taken the time to do that. You should have spent just, more time on gameplay. You should have just done the 1v1. I understand people want to see the gameplay. The people want to get their hands on the game. I understand that. But this was important. And actually, through conversations I've had with people, specifically actually Mr. Dubs, who makes a lot of videos on us, I became convinced that a 1v1 is actually not the way to go.
Mm.
If we put out something that's lackluster or doesn't have the content that people want, there are certain games that people are lucky enough that, or the developers are lucky enough that the fans go back to.
Yeah.
But it's a risk.
Yeah.
If you put out something, that first impressions are everything, and that wasn't my opinion when I started this.
Mm-hmm.
But after talking to people, and I was then convinced of it. I was then convinced of, yeah, we only get one shot. We want to be the best wrestling video game that there is, and we only get one shot at a first impression. And if we fuck that up, and if the game fails because we put out an early access, and we might still put out an early access, but if we put out a version that's lackluster or just doesn't hit the mark for people, and they don't ever come back when we have updated it, and it does have all the bells and whistles, and the game is as good as people want it to be, but they've now moved on, they've forgotten about it, there's no community there for online play.
Yeah.
It could easily happen, and the game could fail because of that, and all this work would be for nothing. So we took a chance. I took a chance. And I said, okay, I'm taking a break from doing this. I'm going to try and get this thing to work. I got it to work. So anyway, decision was made. Let's try and do this stuff with the animations. Let's get them all done in one go. Let's wrap this side of development up. Unfortunately for Frank, it means that we can now save money on...
Poor Frank.
No, to be honest though, this is another aspect of this. So, and this is why Frank is still needed. So the animations, this process that I've come up with, I can't say too much about it, but what I will say is it's very similar to motion capture. But what that means is, rather than when we used to do, here's the first frame and we'll build that out and we'll make the animation and then we'll just blend between that animation and the next frame of animation, which would be like frame 10 or something like that. Because this system, right, we'll just leave that camera off for now. Because of the way this system's designed, it actually means that we have to do, it's faster so it doesn't matter, but we have to do every single frame. So when you do every single frame, again, like motion capture, it means if there's a frame that's wrong, it's going to require a bit of cleanup. It's not really as simple as just delete that frame sometimes as well. Sometimes you need to go in and delete a whole chunk of frames. And also it means, as people will see, because I'll probably put some footage just now to explain that the animations are not in a state of being 100% clean.
Yeah.
So although, I'm sitting here, I'm over the moon, I'm delighted that we have all the animations done. But when I say done, what I mean is they're in a state that would have taken us a fucking long time to get to.
Yeah.
But the state that they're in means that they do need a little bit of cleanup. So I'll put some footage over, and you can see like where a leg will bend out of where it should be, or an arm will twist in a way that it shouldn't. This is just the nature of, like, it's just unavoidable. That's going to happen, but it's fine, because the reality is most of the animations have turned out okay with only minimal cleanup needed. Some of them with the arms bending out of shape, the knees bending out of shape. There's actually some issues whenever you see the hands going up, like if it's a celebration taunt when he puts his hands up, the shoulders are not how they should be, so they need to go in and be corrected. But actually the cleanup process is nothing like what the original process was. So like if we have to get Frank to go in and clean all this stuff up, it's not like what it was before, where it's going to take like, a couple of days to do a move. Like over the course of a few days, 2 days he could probably get through like 10 or 20 moves, and get them all cleaned up. It's a much quicker process. But the brilliant thing about this is that now there's nothing preventing me, there's no barriers in the way to building out the rest of the gameplay. And that does mean like steel cage matches, ladder matches, the referee mechanics. The thing that would have prevented me from being able to develop that at certain stages is that you just don't have those animations done, yada yada. So the fact that all these animations are done, as in that state, we're now at a place with the development that I didn't think we'd be for, like, as I said, 7 years. Initially when we got the Kickstarter money, I thought we could have been here naively within, a couple of years, whatever. And it took a bit of time for me to realise that it wasn't going to be that simple. But back then, I didn't know about the sheer number of universal animations. Hadn't taken that fully into consideration. So yeah, this has all been a massive roller coaster. But in terms of the animations, we're kind of at the end. We're at the end of that bit. And when people see the uncleaned version of these animations, which, as I say, they're great for me because I can use them to help build out the gameplay and the cleanup's minimal. But when people see them, I hope people can understand why we've not released any gameplay footage. Because if people see footage of these animations and a knee jerks out of position or an elbow does something weird, I mean, am I going to explain away everything that I've just spent the past, couple hours talking about? Am I going to be able to convey that in a comment? And say like, oh yeah, don't worry about that, it's because of this, that, it's just, and then I have to do that to every individual person who asks about it on every different social media platform. So this is the reason why we've not put out anything. It's not because we don't have stuff to put out. It's because there needs to be the context of what all this stuff is. And hopefully with the video that we're putting together today, that context will be loud and clear. Everyone will understand that, the reason that, one is that, I had to take a bit of time away initially. And then the gameplay footage that we could show, there's reasons as to why it's janky. There's also, I should say as well, there's other things that we cannot discuss. There's things that have happened at a company level that led to delays. And we'd love to be able to discuss that, but of course, what else can I say? We can't discuss that. But please trust that there are reasons, and there are good reasons as to why there have been delays. And we might not be able to discuss this thing for a long time. But if in the future we are able to discuss it, I promise you will all completely understand. Anyway, just wanted to kind of get that out there. So this is where we're at. we're at a position where people ask, like, how's development going? We've not seen anything in a while. Okay, I know you've not seen anything in a while. Development is going great. It's going better than ever expected. I think all of us on the team are very excited about everything that's happened, where we are, where it's going. We are completely aware that people want to see more footage. And you know, we talked about doing this as a 2-parter or maybe a 3-parter. This episode was all on animations and explaining that. And actually, although we want to wait and do gameplay in a few weeks, when we do maybe another one of these developer deep dive, we could do one on gameplay, and during that video we'll show off some gameplay that people haven't seen before. But in the meantime, I have actually captured from in-game all the animations that we've done. And now that you have that awareness of, you know, if you see an elbow moving out of place, or you see something that doesn't look right, now you understand that, well, that's just part of this process and it's not a big deal, it's not something to worry about. Now I would feel comfortable showing off the complete video of all the animations. We're talking all 5,000. I think on the video there's actually there's only 5,200 and something. It's not the full 5,600, but yeah, we have a video, 5,200 and something animations. It's 3 hours long. Okay, so anyone that thinks that we haven't been doing anything with this game or whatever, or that there hasn't been any progress made, we have a 3-hour long video of every single animation reproduced from Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, No Mercy, you know, WrestleMania 2000, Revenge. Yeah, we even did animations that we're probably never going to fucking use. But
we've got a very special promotion that's going to be part of UPW DLC in the future, and we found animations that would help us tremendously with some of the issues, which we'll have more on in the future.
I'm not saying a word. Yes, yeah. And maybe some people, I reckon some people will probably know what we're talking about there. But yeah, and looking at the animations and thinking of what the AKI developers were going for with certain things, that now we feel like we've got kind of carte blanche to do that. Because we've always tried to stick by what the original developers intended, and there are some clues within the animations as to what those things were. One of them I can say is Royal Rumble match mechanics, where you actually can throw the opponent over the top rope, and there's a whole system for dangling on the ropes and getting back in or getting knocked out. A few unfinished animations that let us understand that there was the intention to do things like that. So I'm trying to think, I've got one other thing that I kind of wanted to wrap up with, but I'm trying to think if there was anything else to say in between that. Oh yeah, actually the 3-hour long video of all the animations, well, we've decided to put that on Patreon. So if you are sick in the head and want to sit through 3 hours worth of animations,
it's enthralling stuff.
We'll put it on there. You know, something we were discussing the other day actually in one of the staff calls, that because it's such a grind, it's 3 hours, and like, you know, I love those animations, but probably not everyone that's a UPW fan loves those animations that much that they're going to sit through 3 hours of nothing but animations. But if you are like that and do want to see them, of course we're going to make them available on the Patreon. Yeah, we've got to shell something, haven't we? But rather than just put it up there with some background music, which might get a bit boring, what we thought, and we've not decided if we're going to do this or not yet, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the video looks like when it comes out. But an idea that we have is, rather than it just be background music for 3 hours, which I feel sorry for Stephen for, you know, he's going to have to make it not be too repetitive. Either we do that, or we actually just have a 3 hour long staff call
with me and you, Stephen, Hal, Lucha, Mike, and Anthony and Elwayster. And basically it'll be like a watch along. We'll just watch these animations with you, and we'll shoot the shit, and we'll make it fun. So that would be ideal. Recording that might be an issue, so I'm not 100% going to commit to that being a thing. But yeah, obviously, like, you know, I know people will get mad because like we put stuff on the Patreon sometimes, and people are like, you know, can you not just give us everything for free? Well, sorry, we can't. Kickstarter backers, hopefully with this update, you won't get mad, because I'm going to post the link to this long video on the Kickstarter as well. And obviously this video that we're making is going out to everyone. So sorry for the little shill there at the end with the Patreon, but again, like, the more money that we generate, the more we can put it towards development.
Like, Patreon's important. Like,
yeah,
we should say that. Like, the Patreon's allowed us to do a lot of extra things with this development and getting to this stage. It has been really, really, really important, because the budget on this game, although it was wonderful to get the Kickstarter money, it's not tremendous. It's not.
No, I definitely think people underappreciate how much money goes into making games. The reason I don't bring that up is because it's my fault. It's like, it was me that asked for the 60 grand, so I'm not going to complain about that. Or even if it is not enough money, it's not something that I would ever like to say, because it's like, well, it's me that's fucking put that number out there and asked for that amount. So, you know, if it wasn't enough money, I should have asked for more. So I've only got myself to blame with that. But, you know, we obviously get a little bit of money on Kickstarter, and that goes a long way. And so, on Patreon, sorry. So, like, that is something that we need to bring up occasionally.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know people don't like to hear that, but that is the reality. We are on a shoestring budget. Mm-hmm. And especially without putting out any gameplay in recent weeks and months, it's getting harder and harder to ask people to support us in that way. But now, you know, hopefully this video is 3 hours long. Hopefully people see this and they can at least take from it, you know, oh, okay, well, at least there is something. There is something going on here. For me, it's not just that. For me, it's not just proof of, like, look, this is how much work we've done. This is where we've been over the last 4 months. To me, it's like something completely different. To me, it's like this was the biggest hurdle to the game's development, and we fucking smashed it. It's now a thing of the past. It's now something that's ticked off. You know, we've got that big poster with all the moves. We might as well take a pen and just go through every single move, you know. So that's where we're at. And if you told me, you know, 6 months ago that right now we would have not just every move, every animation. Yeah. You know, that would have been absolutely unbelievable. And that's where we are. And that's all I can think about. That's where the fuck we are right now. So yeah, I'm over the moon. I'm excited. I do want to say one thing just to push back against any. I can't help it. My mind goes through like the possible criticisms that people might have. One of the criticisms might be we're kind of flying too close to the sun with the AKI stuff. You know, we're talking about AKI or Aki. I can't remember what who pronounces it what. I've always called it AKI. But yeah, people might say, like, you know, we're too focused on those particular animations. We should have just created our own animations. Again, that's not where my heart is. My heart is in reproducing and recreating, even with the game engine. The goal is to reproduce and recreate it as accurately as possible as a baseline. Same with the animations. These are all baseline. We will create more, and with the gameplay we will expand on it. But of course, people will say, even in the course of this video, the amount of times that we've mentioned AKI, you know, we're going to get a lawsuit, you know, because we're just talking about AKI, and we're perhaps convincing people that we are AKI.
Yeah.
Because people will look and they won't know the difference, and especially with the animations being so close. Or if we were ever to promote something and show AKI footage, or if we were to do something like Hyper Focus Games Man, when he's like a character that we've made, but it's very, very similar to AKI Man, people might look at that and question it. And so to anyone that does have a problem with all the AKI references and how much we talk about AKI, you have to understand that to us, that's all we care about. I mean, we like wrestling games, but AKI is at the top of the list of the things that we care about. It's reproducing that engine, because otherwise it's dead. And the fact is, outside of the modern community, those games for the last 25 years have been dead. AKI was dead.
Yes.
Was
dead.
It was dead.
Was.
It was dead. And it's not dead anymore. Because Hyperfocus Games now own the trademarks for AKI, AKI USA, and the logo. And of course we got Hal to draw AKI Man as well. So what does this mean for Hyperfocus Games? Well, I mean, we're not changing our name or anything like that, but it does mean that we can now promote AKI with this game. We now no longer have to say that we are a spiritual successor. We are now the actual successor to those games, which I'm sure will rub some people the wrong way. I'm sure of it. But this really is our dream, and being able to put the AKI logo anywhere near this game is a dream come true for us.
Absolutely.
So we've decided to do that.
It's incredible news.
And I hope you are all happy with that news. So, yeah. So that's where we're at. There's a bombshell for you.
And on that bombshell.
And on that bombshell, we've been filming for fucking 4 hours or something. Oh, okay.
We'll return again, and next time we'll talk about another one of the big topics that we've got, either gameplay and other aspects going into it. But we're hoping that these sit-downs allay any fears, answer a lot of questions, and give you a good insight into how development's going and how the team are thinking about where UPW is right now.
Yeah, and the gameplay part, which I know everyone will be looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
So am I, because what we're going to do is we're going to set up a screen and we're literally going to walk through the gameplay and talk everybody through everything. Don't ask when it's coming out, I actually probably need a break. I probably need like a week off or something. And it'll take us some time to get everything together. But
you might need those 7 years off.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've fucking earned it now. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been part one of the developers deep dive on UPW, and yeah, we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.